Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
This time we're tackling a challenge that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with.
Yeah.
It's how to really wrangle all of this data analytics and turn it into, actual good decisions fast.
Right.
Our guide for this is a white paper
Oh, cool.
called Managing the Analytics Lifecycle for Decisions at Scale. And it's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I was really impressed by this paper.
It's got a lot of really great stuff.
It does. And it's incredible to think about just how much data companies are dealing with now.
Oh, yeah.
But this paper, it really hits on this.
Yeah.
Having data, that's one thing.
Right.
Using it, that's something else.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
make those informed decisions.
Like you can have all the data in the world,
Right.
but if you're not actually doing anything with it.
Yeah,
that's it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's just taking up space, right?
Exactly.
Digital space.
So imagine, you've got these hundreds, maybe even thousands of analytical models kind of working in the background. It's supposed to be helping you make these better decisions.
Oh, yeah, across the board.
Marketing, finance, risk management, you name it.
It's everywhere.
But instead of, this beautiful like symphony of data-driven insights,
Right.
you've got this kind of chaotic mess.
Yeah, it happens more often than you think.
Things are all over the place.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Models are scattered. Documentation's missing. Nobody knows if they're even working.
Nobody knows who's responsible half the
Right, exactly.
It can be a real nightmare.
And this paper, it brings up this crazy statistic.
Oh, yeah, I love this one.
This one major credit card processor,
Okay.
they make 14,000 operational decisions every second.
Every second. Can you imagine?
14,000 decisions a second. That just blows my mind.
It really puts things into perspective.
I mean, think about if your models are off.
Even a little bit.
Yeah.
Huge problems.
Oh, yeah, catastrophic. So no wonder it's so important to really manage that entire life cycle.
The whole thing, you got to get it right.
You have to.
And this paper, it lays out a good plan for it.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, it starts with
Yeah.
it starts with understanding the two phases of the cycle.
Okay.
We've got discovery and deployment.
Okay, so let's start with the discovery.
Yeah.
What goes on in that initial phase?
Well, it might seem obvious, but the first thing is to ask the right question.
Okay.
You need a problem to solve.
Right, like what are we even trying to figure out here?
Exactly. You got to have a purpose, or you're just wasting time with the data.
Right, or you end up,
It's like driving around with no destination.
you're just on a road trip.
Exactly. You might see some cool stuff, but are you going to get where you need to be?
Probably not.
Probably not.
You're going to end up lost.
So yeah, you got to have that clear goal in mind.
Okay, so we need a destination before we get on the data highway.
I like that.
So what's next?
Then comes the part everyone loves.
Okay.
Oh, I know, right?
Not my favorite.
It's like you're trying to bake a cake, but all your ingredients are all over the kitchen.
Okay.
You got to gather it all up.
From everywhere.
Everywhere. Internal systems, customer databases, social media, all of it.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Then you clean it and you got to format it and make sure it's consistent.
Sounds exhausting.
So yeah, not the most fun part.
But you got to do it right.
You got to do.
So once we've got all of our ingredients in order, then what?
Then comes the fun part.
Okay, fine.
Data exploration.
All right.
This is where you get to be a detective,
I like it.
looking for those hidden patterns and insights.
So you're looking for clues.
Exactly. And visualization tools are key here.
Really?
You can see those relationships and trends
Okay.
that you wouldn't see just looking at a spreadsheet.
So it's like looking at the bigger picture.
Exactly. And as you start uncovering these patterns,
Yeah.
you move into the modeling phase.
Okay.
And that's where you apply different algorithms to the data.
To kind of predict what's going to happen.
Exactly. Predict future outcomes
Oh.
or understand those complex relationships.
So we're sticking with our detective analogy.
Okay, yeah.
We found the clues. Now we're building the profile.
Perfect analogy.
Okay.
And just like you might have multiple suspects,
Oh.
you might create multiple models,
Okay.
each one using a different approach.
So you're testing out different theories.
Exactly. And then you compare them head to head
Okay.
in what we call a model tournament.
A model tournament.
I know it sounds kind of intense,
It does a little bit.
but it's basically just a competition.
So like a data-driven battle royale.
You could say that.
Winner takes all?
Winner takes all. You test them against the data and see which one performs the best.
Okay. And then,
Once you have your champion model,
yeah,
you move on to the deployment phase.
that's where it gets real.
That's where we put these insights into action.
This is the moment of truth.
It is.
So let's dive into deployment. What happens next?
All right, so we've got our winning model.
Our champion.
Yeah, now we got to carefully move it from this, experimental phase into the real world where it can actually start doing something.
Right, so I imagine it's not as simple as just, flipping a switch and letting it loose.
Oh, no, definitely not a set it and forget it
Oh,
situation.
okay.
We got to make sure the transition is smooth.
So what does that involve?
There are a few key steps: registering the model, making sure it's behaving like it's supposed to in a live environment, and then setting up those governance procedures.
Okay, governance procedures, that sounds important.
Wow.
Why is that so crucial at this stage?
Well, think of it as, setting up the rules of the road for your model.
Okay.
Governance ensures that it's used responsibly, ethically,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that aligns with the organization's goals.
Right, makes sense.
And also, any relevant regulations.
Right, of course.
It's all about transparency, accountability, making sure everyone understands how the model works and, even its limitations.
So we're not just like unleashing some powerful tool without any supervision.
No, no, no.
It's more about integrating it carefully.
Exactly, responsibly.
Okay, so once our model is implemented, governed, then
I
what?
think we can start acting on the information it gives us.
Okay, but I imagine the way we act depends on the kind of decisions we're trying to make.
You're right. There are different types.
Okay, like what?
We've got strategic decisions. Those are usually made by people
Right.
who look at the model's output and decide what to do.
So those are the more complex scenarios?
Exactly. The ones that need, human judgment experience.
Okay.
And then we've got operational decisions.
Okay.
These are often more routine.
So we can automate those.
Exactly. For efficiency.
Can you give me an example of an operational decision that a model could handle?
Sure. Imagine a fraud detection system
Go.
for like online transactions.
Yeah.
The model could look at purchase history, location, spending patterns, all that,
Yeah.
and instantly flag anything suspicious
Based on.
based on a risk score.
Okay.
And if that score is too high, the transaction gets declined automatically.
So it's like a 247 watchdog.
Exactly. Always on guard protecting the system.
But even with automation, I guess we can't assume our models are always right.
You're right. We can't just set them loose and forget about them.
We need to keep an eye on them.
Absolutely. Make sure they're meeting expectations, adapting to any changes.
So evaluation is a big part of this.
Huge. It's ongoing and vital. You need to monitor that performance, make sure it's still hitting those goals, like taking your car in for maintenance.
Okay, I like that analogy. So what are some signs that a model might be starting to, break down?
Well, you might see the accuracy drop
Okay.
or an increase in those false positives or negatives.
Right, so it's not making the right calls.
Exactly. And that could mean the data is outdated or the relationships have changed.
So what do we do when a model starts to falter?
Sometimes a little tune-up is all it takes.
Okay.
Tweak some parameters, retrain it with fresh data.
Like a little software update?
Exactly. But sometimes you need to start over completely.
Build a whole new model.
Yeah, with new variables or different algorithms.
So it sounds like this process requires a lot of flexibility
Definitely.
and ongoing attention. It's not a one-and-done thing.
Nope. It's a continuous loop monitoring, evaluating, refining.
Constantly improving.
The world is constantly changing, and your models need to keep up.
Right, so we might have to revisit that discovery phase.
Exactly.
Ask new questions, find new data.
It's a cycle.
So it's all connected.
It is.
But I'm realizing that this constant evolution must come with its own set of challenges.
You're right, and that's actually what this white paper dives into next.
Okay, so what are some of the hurdles organizations need to be prepared for?
One of the most common is delays.
Delays, how so?
Getting a model from that initial idea to actually using it can take forever.
Really?
Months, even years sometimes.
Wow, why is that?
A lot of times it's those manual processes, or bureaucracy and lack of communication between teams.
So many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly. And another challenge is defining those triggers. Yeah, those rules that decide how the model's output gets turned into action.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you have a model that predicts customer churn.
Okay, people
Well-
leaving.
Right. So what level of risk makes you step in?
Right.
What actions do you take to keep those customers?
So the triggers need to be really clear.
They do, and aligned with your goals.
What else?
Well, then there's the problem of just bad results.
Like the model isn't working.
Right. Sometimes models are deployed and then forgotten, even if they're giving bad predictions.
They're just out there
out to pasture.
on stale data.
Exactly. And that can lead to bad decisions.
So we need to be monitoring them.
Constantly and evaluating. We can't assume they'll work forever.
What other challenges are there?
Well, confusion can be a big one.
Confusion.
Yeah, when you have all these different models.
Built by different teams.
Exactly, using different approaches.
It's hard to keep track.
It can be, you need good documentation, consistent processes.
And a central place for everything.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's just chaos.
A recipe for disaster.
And that lack of clarity can lead to problems with transparency.
Right, if you can't explain how your models work,
Exactly what data they're using, what assumptions they're making.
people aren't going to trust them.
And that undermines the whole point of using data to make decisions.
You lose that trust.
Exactly. And then there's the problem of knowledge loss.
What happens when someone leaves?
Exactly what happens when the person who built the model moves on.
And they didn't document anything.
You're left with this black box that nobody understands.
Like a machine with no instruction manual.
Exactly. You might be able to keep it running for a while, but eventually something's going to go wrong.
That's a scary thought.
And then finally, there's the skill shortage.
Finding good people.
It's tough finding and keeping qualified data scientists and analysts.
So given all these potential pitfalls, what does a successful analytical environment look like?
Well, it starts with good data.
Okay.
You need readily accessible, well-prepared data. A good data infrastructure so you can easily integrate data, clean it, transform it, get it ready for analysis.
It's like having a well-stocked pantry.
Exactly. Everything organized and labeled.
Okay. And then,
Once you've got that data foundation,
yeah.
you need a system to build, test, and deploy models quickly.
Okay.
The right tools, the right processes, the right people all working together.
Streamlining that whole life cycle.
Exactly, from those initial ideas to actually using those insights.
And of course, we need to be able to monitor how they're doing.
Yep, absolutely. You got to make sure they're delivering those accurate, consistent results.
So set up some kind of monitoring system.
Exactly. Define those performance metrics, set those thresholds for when a model needs attention.
It's like a system of checks and balances.
Exactly, to keep everything on track.
But you said something earlier that really stuck with me. You said it's not just about the technology.
Right?
It's about the people and the processes.
It is. It's about creating a data-driven culture.
What does that mean?
It means everyone understands the value of analytics and how to use it. You invest in your team, you train them, you support them, and you set clear roles and responsibilities.
So it's about making data part of the company's DNA.
Exactly. And that's how you unlock the true power of analytics
To make better decisions faster.
at scale.
Now, I know this white paper also talks about how SaaS can help with this.
They do. They have some great tools.
Okay, like what?
Well, we talked about data preparation and exploration.
Yeah?
SaaS has tools for that, SaaS data management, SaaS visual analytics.
Okay.
And for building models, there's SaaS Factory Miner. You can build and compare tons of models automatically.
Wow.
And SaaS Enterprise Miner, that gives you a more in-depth environment for building and refining models.
So they've got everything covered.
Pretty much.
And once we've built our model, how do we actually get it out there working?
That's where SaaS Enterprise Decision Manager comes in.
Okay.
It's a platform for managing deployment and governance.
And what about monitoring?
SaaS has tools for that too.
Of course they do.
With automated workflow and monitoring tools, you can track performance, get alerts, and even retrain models automatically.
So they've really created this whole ecosystem for data-driven decisions.
They have.
But I always like to see how this works in the real world.
Me too.
Does this white paper have any case studies?
It does some really interesting ones.
Okay, tell me about one.
All right, so there's this UK financial institution.
Okay.
They were really struggling with their analytics.
How
Their model deployment time was ridiculous, like months. They
Yeah.
had all these manual processes errors everywhere and no way to monitor the models once they were live.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
They needed a major overhaul.
So what did they do?
So they turned to SaaS and Teradata.
Who's Teradata?
They're a data warehousing company.
Okay.
And they helped build this whole new platform.
For managing their analytics.
The whole life cycle. And they use this really cool approach
Okay.
in database technology.
In database technology,
Yeah.
that sounds a little complicated.
It's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
Imagine a chef who can make a whole meal without leaving the kitchen.
Okay.
Everything they need is right there.
Okay.
That's kind of what this does.
So it's all in one place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The analytical processing happens right inside the database.
So you don't have to move all that data around.
Exactly. No more moving massive amounts of data.
That saves a lot of time.
A ton of time.
So they brought the tools to the data.
Exactly.
That's brilliant.
And it worked.
How so?
Their model deployment time went from 3 months.
3 months down to a few days.
Wow, that's incredible.
Talk about agility.
That's a game changer.
They could respond to anything so much faster.
What about their data science team?
They were happy.
I bet.
Analyst productivity went up by 50%.
Wow, so they could actually focus on the important stuff.
Exactly. No more getting bogged down by all those manual tasks.
They could actually use their skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Explore new data, build better models.
So it's a win-win. It is faster deployment, better use of resources, a happier team.
It really shows how powerful a streamlined analytics lifecycle can be.
Absolutely. And this white paper has another great example.
Okay,
The Orlando Magic.
a basketball team.
Yeah, they're using SAS to get ahead in a way you might not expect.
I wouldn't think of a basketball team using all this data.
Right, but they're using it to understand their fans.
Oh,
They
right.
analyze ticket sales, social media, even concession purchases.
So they get a complete picture of their fans.
Exactly what they do.
So it's not just about winning games,
It's about the whole fan experience.
making those connections.
Exactly. And they do some really cool stuff.
Like what?
They analyze the secondary ticket market.
You mean where people resell tickets?
Exactly. So they can see the demand in real time
Okay.
and adjust ticket prices accordingly.
So they're constantly optimizing.
Based on the opponent, the day of the week, even the weather.
That's amazing.
They're also using models to predict which season ticket holders might not renew.
So they can reach out to them.
Exactly. Address any concerns, maybe offer them something to stay,
It's all about keeping those fans happy.
and building loyalty.
So they're using data for everything.
Pretty much, they even use it to optimize the in-arena experience.
Like what kind of food to sell.
Exactly. And staffing levels based on how many people they think will be there.
They really are leaving no stone unturned.
They're committed to creating a great experience for their fans.
These case studies are really inspiring.
They are.
They show how managing the analytics lifecycle can lead to real results.
In any industry.
It's not just about the technology, it's about the people using it.
And the processes you put in place.
Investing in your team, building that data-driven culture.
That's how you succeed in this data-driven world.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much.
From those first questions to managing all those models.
We saw the challenges and the amazing things that are possible.
And you use data the right way.
We heard about that financial institution and the Orlando Magic.
Two very different examples.
But both using data to achieve their goals.
Exactly.
So we encourage you to check out the source material.
And think about how you can apply these concepts to your own work.
Keep learning, keep experimenting.
And keep pushing those boundaries.
Until next time, keep diving deep.